The wake was held at Grandma's beach house, the same one my sister Vanessa had just claimed as her own. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood in the corner of the living room, watching relatives fill their plates with catered sandwiches and pasta salad, their voices a low hum of condolences and catching up. I'd arrived early to help set up, just like I'd arrived early every Sunday for the past 4 years to help Grandma with groceries, doctor's appointments, and the endless maintenance an 86-year-old woman couldn't handle alone. The house smelled like the lavender sachets Grandma had loved, mixed with the salt air that drifted through the open windows. Vanessa had arrived 30 minutes late, perfectly styled in a black designer dress, her highlighted hair catching the afternoon light. She'd made her entrance like she was walking a red carpet, accepting hugs and sympathy with practiced grace. I watched her work the room, holding court near the fireplace where Grandma's urn sat surrounded by white roses. Our parents flanked her like proud sentries, my mother's hand resting possessively on Vanessa's shoulder. Then Vanessa cleared her throat and the room gradually quieted. "I just want to thank everyone for coming," she began, her voice trembling with what I recognized as her theater class emotion. "Grandma meant the world to me. We had such a special bond." I pressed my lips together and stared at my shoes, practical black flats because someone had to stay after and clean up. "I know Grandma would want me to share some news," Vanessa continued, pulling a tissue from her clutch. "She left me the beach house. She knew how much I loved this place, how many memories we made here together." My cousin Ashley squealed and hugged her. Aunt Jennifer pressed her hands to her chest. My father nodded approvingly. "And Claire," Vanessa turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "Grandma left you her jewelry box. The antique one from her bedroom. Isn't that sweet?" The room turned to look at me standing alone by the bookshelf. A few people offered sympathetic smiles, the kind you give someone who clearly got the consolation prize. "That's lovely," I said softly because what else could I say? That the jewelry box was worth maybe $300 while the beach house was worth $1.2 million? That Vanessa had visited Grandma exactly 6 times in 4 years while I'd been here every single week? I stayed quiet. I smiled. And I walked to the kitchen to refill the ice bucket, because that's what I always did. Kept my head down and made sure everything ran smoothly while Vanessa took center stage. Through the kitchen window I saw a black Mercedes pull into the driveway. A woman in a navy suit emerged, carrying a leather briefcase, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun. My stomach tightened. I recognized her immediately. Margaretchen, Grandma's estate attorney. The woman who'd sat at this very kitchen table 3 months ago while Grandma and I went over the final revisions to her will. I dried my hands on a towel and walked back toward the living room just as Margaret entered through the front door. She scanned the crowd with sharp, assessing eyes until they landed on me. "Claire Thompson." Her voice cut through the conversations like a knife through butter. Every head swiveled toward me. I felt 50 pairs of eyes drilling into my skin. "Yes." My voice came out smaller than I intended. "I'm Margaretchen, your grandmother's estate attorney. We need to discuss the property transfer immediately. There are several documents requiring your signature." The room went silent. Completely, utterly silent. I heard something shatter, the crystal sound of breaking glass. Vanessa stood frozen by the fireplace, wine spreading across the hardwood floor like blood, the stem of her glass still clutched in her hand. "What property?" Vanessa's voice cracked on the last word. Margaret turned to her with the expression of someone who'd dealt with this exact scenario 100 times before. "And you must be Vanessa. Your grandmother left you some lovely pieces in her jewelry collection. We'll get to that shortly." "No." Vanessa's face had gone from perfectly made up to blotchy in seconds. "No, Grandma left me the beach house. She told me." "Mrs. Reynolds," Margaret interrupted, her tone professional but firm, "your grandmother left very specific instructions regarding her estate. The beach house, all attached properties and the primary investment accounts go to Claire. These decisions were made with full mental capacity, properly witnessed and legally binding." My mother stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. "That's impossible. There must be a mistake. Vanessa was Evelyn's favorite grandchild. Everyone knows that." "Mrs. Thompson," Margaret's gaze shifted to my mother, "I've been Mrs. Williams's attorney for 22 years. I assure you there is no mistake. Your mother was very clear about her intentions." She turned back to me, her expression softening slightly. Claire, is there somewhere private we can talk? This really should be handled away from. She glanced around the room. The current audience. The study, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Down the hall. As I moved toward the hallway, I felt the weight of every stare. I heard Vanessa's sharp intake of breath, my father's confused muttering, my mother's rising protest. This is ridiculous. Vanessa's voice followed us. Claire barely even visited. I was the one who. I stopped walking. Something inside me that had been compressed for years suddenly expanded, taking up all the space in my chest. I turned around slowly. You visited 6 times in 4 years, Vanessa. My voice was quiet but steady. 6 times. I have the calendar Grandma kept on her refrigerator. She marked every visit in red pen because they were so rare they deserved special notation. Vanessa's mouth opened but no sound came out. I was here every Sunday, I continued. Every Sunday for 4 years. I drove 3 hours round trip from the city. I helped her with groceries, medications, bills. I took her to cardiology appointments, physical therapy, and the emergency room at 2 in the morning when she had that fall last November. I looked at my parents who stood frozen by the fireplace. You were there that night, remember? At the hospital. Wait, no. You were in Cabo for Vanessa's birthday trip. I called you 6 times. None of you answered. My mother's face flushed red. We were going to call back in the morning. Grandma had a concussion and 3 broken ribs, I said. I sat in that waiting room alone for 7 hours. The nurses thought I was her daughter because I was the only one who came. You never told us it was that serious, my father said weakly. I left voicemails, I replied. Detailed ones. You just never listened to them. Vanessa found her voice again, shrill and desperate. But Grandma loved me. She always said I reminded her of herself when she was young. She did say that, I agreed. She also said you were beautiful and charming and knew how to work a room. What she told me in private was that beauty and charm don't hold your hand when you're scared, don't drive you to doctors, and don't show up when it's inconvenient. I looked around the room at the relatives who'd watched Vanessa shine for years while I'd quietly done the work. Grandma left me the house because I earned it, I said simply. Not through inheritance rights or being someone's favorite. I earned it by showing up. Margaret touched my elbow gently. Claire? Shall we? I nodded and followed her down the hallway, leaving behind the stunned silence and Vanessa's choked sobs. The study was exactly as Grandma had left it, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the mahogany desk where she'd written letters every morning, the window seat where we'd drunk tea and talked about everything and nothing. Margaret set her briefcase on the desk and pulled out a thick folder. Before we go through the legal documents, your grandmother left you this. She handed me a sealed envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges, my name written in Grandma's elegant cursive. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Claire. If you're reading this, then Margaret has arrived at the wake, and I imagine Vanessa has already announced that she inherited the beach house. She always did like to be first with news, even when it wasn't true. I'm sorry for the dramatics, but I needed everyone to see the truth. For too long I watched your parents praise Vanessa while taking you for granted. I watched them accept your help, your money, your time without acknowledgement, while celebrating Vanessa's smallest gestures as grand acts of love. You've been sending your parents $1,500 every month for 3 years to help with their mortgage. Did they ever tell Vanessa that? Did they ever tell anyone? Or did they let everyone keep believing you were just the quiet one, the one who didn't need attention while Vanessa was the star? The beach house is yours. The investment portfolio is yours. The savings account is yours. All totaling roughly $2.3 million. I've also left instructions that you're to receive my grandmother's wedding ring, the one Vanessa always admired but never knew the history of. Use this money to build the life you've been putting on hold. Stop sacrificing for people who don't appreciate the sacrifice. And please, darling, don't let guilt make you share what you've earned. I love you for who you are, not for what you do for others. Remember that. Forever yours, Grandma. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the expensive paper. The total estate value is approximately $2.3 million, Margaret said gently, giving me time to compose myself. The beach house is worth $1.2 million. There's $650,000 in investment accounts, $400,000 in savings and various other assets. Your grandmother also owned a small rental property in town worth about $180,000 that generates monthly income. I looked up at her, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. What did she leave Vanessa? A jewelry collection valued at approximately $45,000, some artwork worth about $20,000, and a cash bequest of $50,000. Margaret paused. Your grandmother was generous, but she was also fair. She provided for Vanessa while ensuring you received what you'd earned through years of dedicated care. My parents, I said hesitantly. Did she leave them anything? Margaret's lips tightened almost imperceptibly. Your grandmother left them a letter. Nothing more. She felt they'd already received enough through your generosity. We spent the next hour going through paperwork. Signatures, initials, property transfer documents, account access forms. My hand cramped by the end and my eyes were gritty from crying and reading fine print. When we finally finished, Margaret packed up her briefcase and handed me a folder with copies of everything. One more thing, she said, reaching into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a small velvet box. Your grandmother wanted you to have this immediately. I opened it. Inside was a platinum ring with a single emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, Grandma's grandmother's wedding ring. The one Vanessa had tried on at every family gathering and hinted about wanting. She wore it every day until the end, Margaret said softly. She said it should go to the granddaughter who understood what marriage and commitment really mean, showing up even when it's hard. I slipped it onto my right hand. It fit perfectly. When I emerged from the study, most of the guests had left. Only my immediate family remained. My parents on the sofa, Vanessa curled in the armchair, her face swollen and red. They all looked up when I entered. Claire, my mother started, but I held up my hand. I'm not discussing this today, I said. Today we buried Grandma. That's enough for one day. But honey, my father tried, surely you'll share the house with your sister? Family should show up, I interrupted quietly. Family should help without being asked. Family should appreciate sacrifice instead of expecting it. I picked up my purse from the entry table. I'll be back tomorrow to start going through Grandma's things. Vanessa, your jewelry is in the safe. Margaret has the combination for you. Claire, please. Vanessa's voice was small, broken. We're sisters. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. Behind the tears and the ruined makeup, I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine fear. We are sisters, I agreed. And maybe that can mean something real now. But it starts with honesty, Vanessa. It starts with you admitting why Grandma made the choice she made. I walked to the door, then paused. I'll be keeping the beach house. But you're welcome to visit. On Sundays. Maybe we can build some actual memories here. I left before anyone could respond, walking out into the salt air and afternoon sun. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from my best friend Sarah. How'd it go? I looked back at the beach house. My beach house now, sitting proud and beautiful against the ocean backdrop. It went exactly as Grandma planned, I typed. I'm finally free. And as I drove away, I felt the weight of years of being overlooked finally lift from my shoulders.